Good morning. We are presenting today preliminary findings from our study on uptake and persistent use of long-acting injectable cabotegravir, or CABLA, offered as a HIV prevention to female sex workers in Malawi. So despite considerable progress, HIV remains a concern in Malawi. With an estimated prevalence of 6% and a striking 53% amongst female sex workers, and ongoing transmission as well, recently a new tool has become available, long-acting injectable PrEP, which marks a major advance in HIV prevention. So two PrEP options relevant in our context are firstly oral PrEP, which requires daily medication intake, but has known challenges in terms of adherence and persistent use. And secondly, CABLA, the first ever long-acting injectable PrEP, requiring injections in the buttocks every 2 months. The clinical trials showed high efficacy and good tolerability, but with injection site pain as a common side effect. While CABLA is sought to overcome the challenges associated with oral PrEP, we lack real-world evidence, and including for sex workers. So MSF is supporting a community-based sex worker project in Dedza and Nino district, with mobile outreach clinics providing sexual and reproductive health services to 21 different female sex work hotspots. So oral PrEP has already been available, but uptake has remained low. CABLA was introduced in January 25, with initially limited capacity due to global supply shortages. Offering CABLA as an alternative PrEP option through this community-based model is expected to support PrEP use amongst female sex workers. So our study objectives are to assess uptake, preferences, and persistent use of both PrEP alternatives, to explore respective barriers and facilitators of PrEP use, and to evaluate feasibility and acceptability of PrEP provision through outreach clinics in sex work hotspots. It's an 18-month observational mixed method study, which started in January 25. Quantitatively, we use routine data, analyzed descriptively with a multi-state model framework to assess PrEP use over time. And qualitatively, we include both clinic clients and PrEP stakeholders through individual, couple, and group interviews. And today, our preliminary findings will be based on data up until March 26, as well as some early qualitative findings. So clinic attendees were predominantly female, reflecting the focus of the project. Median age was 26 years, ranging between 14 to 78, including minors, but mostly young adults. Most clients were new to the clinics, and engagement in sex work was varied, from being the primary source of income to intermittent or no engagement at all. High mobility was also common, with cross-border movements between Malawi and Mozambique. And shared vulnerabilities included food insecurity, stigma, violence, and limited legal protection. Shown here is PrEP uptake over the current observation period. So in total, 1,393 clients were offered PrEP. About half accepted PrEP assessment, and then nearly all of which were started on PrEP, resulting in 742 PrEP initiations. Of those, 41% started with oral PrEP, and 59% started with CABLA. And just to note as well that 70% actually preferred CABLA, but 59% could receive it on an initial prescription, mainly due to the supply constraints we faced. So this graph illustrates PrEP prescriptions at follow-up visits after initiation. Among those who returned for PrEP, prescriptions continued, but mainly for CABLA, as we can see in green. Furthermore, 1 in 5 oral PrEP users actually switched to CABLA once capacity is allowed, but only 3% switched from CABLA to oral PrEP. And this was mostly due to pregnancy, as current Malawi guidelines insists. Pain, swelling, lumps pain, swelling, and lumps at injection site were reported, most commonly on the first 4 injections, but the pain was described as substantial. However, there was no medically induced discontinuation. No HIV seroconversions were recorded amongst those who returned for PrEP. So, yep. So here we actually have the same graph, but now we've also added those who did not return for PrEP. We've grouped them into 3 categories. So firstly, in yellow, as you can see, we have off PrEP. This refers to missed or late appointments. In orange, we have lost to follow-up, defined as no return by more than 2 months. In pink, we have stopped PrEP, which refers to those who actually returned to the clinic and reported stopping PrEP. So overall, we had disengagement from PrEP. It was substantial, as you can see. It mainly occurred after the 2nd and 3rd visit, and it was mostly attributed to loss to follow-up. Next, we used a multi-state model framework to estimate PrEP use over the full 12 months. The table shows probabilities of being in PrEP follow-up states on the left, or PrEP exit states on the right, at 3, 6, and 12 months. We used the same categories as I've previously introduced. So at baseline, we observed that 41% started with oral PrEP, and 59% started with Cabla. Oral PrEP then drops rapidly by 10-fold to 4% at month 3 and 3% at month 12. Cabla use, on the other hand, reduces less and decreases more steadily, stabilizing at 30% by month 6. Off PrEP range between 17 to 5%. And lastly, amongst the PrEP exit states, loss to follow-up is the most dominant one. Nearly 1/3 of PrEP users are estimated to be lost to follow-up by month 3, and about half by month 12. The probability of actually returning to the clinic and reporting PrEP discontinuation remained small. So qualitative interviews also highlighted several factors influencing both PrEP uptake and persistent use. Most participants were aware of PrEP, and mobile clinics were perceived as accessible and non-judgmental. Cabla was preferred, as it allowed for discrete use, eliminating the need to remember a daily pill. But barriers included the fear or the experience of side effects, nausea, malaria-like symptoms for oral PrEP, and injection site pain, swelling, lumps with Cabla. Additionally, there was stigma and violence associated with PrEP use, but mainly with oral PrEP. The risk of being seen regularly at the clinic by community members, peer pressure and misconceptions, and for Cabla specifically, currently limited access sites in Malawi for clients who are mobile. So here we share some voices from our participants. Firstly, regarding Cabla preference and its discrete use, one user explained, like the friend I told you about, who was asking for PrEP from me, she was shy to go and get it. She thought that maybe when she carries the bottles, someone will see her. So injectable is better, because no one will know that you're on PrEP. Another Cabla user illustrated the livelihood impact that Cabla injection site pain located on the buttocks can have for a female sex worker. For you to sleep with a man, they need to touch your buttocks, and your waist should get involved, but you are in pain. You can't be able to do it. It happens that the days you are in pain, you are just staying at home and can't work. So in summary, we observed moderate PrEP uptake, and with a strong preference for Cabla. Ongoing PrEP use was predominantly with Cabla, with the probability of staying active at 12 months around 10-fold higher than that of oral PrEP. There was also substantial PrEP disengagement, starting early around the 2nd and 3rd visits, affecting around half the cohort by month 12. PrEP uptake and persistence were shaped by contextual, social, and individual barriers, while the discretion offered by Cabla facilitated its use. And so, as we have seen, Cabla has shown the potential to boost PrEP uptake and persistent use amongst female sex workers, but we also see gaps. Key strategies to address these include further sensitization in sex work hotspots, strengthened counselling at PrEP initiation and follow-up visits, and to ensure a linkage to the now expanding Ministry of Health Cabla delivery sites. And just as we look ahead, the next generation of long-acting injectable PrEP, lenacapavir, requiring only 2 injections per year, will soon become available. Enhanced monitoring should continue to further guide delivery models, support strategy, as well as supply. So thank you to everybody who is involved, and thank you for listening.